What is up, everybody? Matt here, back again with another video for you. Today we're going to be taking a closer look at the soundtrack to the film Christine, one of my favorite vinyls that I have in my collection. It's the soundtrack to the 1983 film of the same name, which was directed by another one of my favorite directors, John Carpenter, best known for obviously Halloween, but also for Escape from New York, Big Trouble in Little China, The Thing, one of the greatest films ever made, and it's based on the amazing novel by Stephen King, the master of horror, I believe. We don't need to run through his work, but we have things like The Shining, Shawshank Redemption, Dolores Claiborne, It, which is going to be super awesome, can't wait for that. It's an amazing film. It's more than just a killer car movie, you know, and I think that's what people really think of when they think of this particular film. It's not just a car goes crazy and starts killing people. It's about a car that defends its owners to the death. So basically, let's say you own Christine and somebody walks up to you and they smack you around, they're like, oh, loser, whatever. Well, the car will then hunt down that person and run them over or something horrible. In the film, it's more than just the car running over people, it's the car doing absolutely insane things. This is just a fantastic film, and the film and the book are really more about the characters that are affected by the car, and in some cases completely transformed by them. Which is the case with the main character. Christine in the film is a 1958 red Plymouth Fury. The film itself, when it came out originally, did okay with critics and at the box office, but on home video it became a cult classic, and you know, rightfully so. It's the right mix of silly and a really good thriller. And the stunt work in it is absolutely amazing. You know, it's really cool to know that there's somebody behind the wheel of Christine for some of these really insane shots. And the visual effects are great too, and they're all practical. There's no computer-generated stuff in here. That car is really doing all that stuff. They had a couple Plymouth Furies, obviously, in the film. There's one, I think, still around that somebody has, but a lot of people who collect Plymouths want a Fury and want to restore it, and rightfully so. I mean, the car has become a cultural icon. It's really, really cool. The music in the film is really important because the songs played on the radio are basically the voice of the character of Christine, the voice of the car. The songs it plays are based on what's happening around the car. So it's like there's a scene where people are trying to break into the car, and Little Richard's "You Keep a Knockin' But You Can't Come In" starts playing, or when he sits in the car it says "You're Mine," you know. So it's really cool, and the music in here is really used absolutely perfectly in the situations that it needs to be in. It adds just the right touch of dark humor to a lot of those scenes. And you know, it's really no surprise that there is a lot of good music in this film. Stephen King himself is a noted rock and roll fan. He plays in a band himself. He has numerous references to rock and roll and music and songs in his books. And of course, he had AC/DC perform the soundtrack to his movie that he directed, Maximum Overdrive. Carpenter, he does this as well. I've said this in my previous video, that he understands music probably better than any director I've ever seen. He uses songs so perfectly. In The Thing, there's a great scene where they're playing Superstition by Stevie Wonder, and it's before anything starts happening in the film. So it's a really great setup that something's happening here, something's weird. And he's obviously a rock fan too. He had Isaac Hayes in Escape from New York, and he had Alice Cooper as the main homeless dude in Prince of Darkness. So very cool on that. I don't know personally what it is about rock and roll and horror films, but they just go so well together. When the soundtrack came out, there were actually two soundtracks released for it. One was the score, which was composed by both Carpenter and a guy named Alan Holworth, who we worked with previously in a couple other films. It's really good synthesizer-based stuff, and it's making a comeback with you know, the popularity of Stranger Things, and I've seen a lot of people doing their own stuff with synthesizers. So if you're a fan of synth, I can highly recommend the score for this particular film. And pretty much all the work of John Carpenter. It's got a really cool, dark 80s edge, and it fits perfectly in his films. So I definitely recommend checking that stuff out. And hopefully with the rise of synth, they'll do a reissue of that, as well as hopefully again some of his other film soundtracks which also feature that. The other soundtrack, which is the one I have here, features the songs used in the film as well as one track from that particular score by Carpenter. The copy that I have is actually a promo copy from the company that released it, Motown Records. So that's pretty cool that this is a promo copy, and very cool. I have a couple records like that. I've looked it up, it's not particularly valuable. It's just kind of a cool thing to have, knowing that. Sometimes you can find some really cool promo copies that they were a promo and then they were going to release it and they never did, but this one obviously came out. The cover's cool too. So of the 15 songs featured in the film, and they're featured heavily in the film, 10 make it onto the soundtrack. And that's pretty cool, and for a soundtrack, that's pretty neat. The other 5 that didn't make it onto the soundtrack were Name of the Game, Runaway, Come On Let's Go, Beast of Burden, and a cover by Tanya Tucker of Not Fade Away by Buddy Holly. This is common with soundtracks, and it's a bit of a loss that we don't get those songs on here, but it doesn't take away from the fantastic flow of this album. It's still got a really good track list. On this particular soundtrack, you have George Thorogood and the Destroyers with Bad to the Bone, Buddy Holly and the Crickets with Not Fade Away, Johnny Ace with Pledging My Love, Robert and Johnny with We Belong Together, Little Richard with Keep It Knockin', Dion and the Belmonts with I Wonder Why, the Viscounts with Harlem Nocturne, Thurston Harris with Little Bitty Pretty One, Danny and the Juniors with Rock and Roll Is Here to Stay, score selection by John Carpenter and Alan Howarth, and Larry Williams' Boney Maroney. Bad to the Bone was specifically chosen for this film because they felt it was just the perfect embodiment of the evil of this car. And it's so awesome when you see that happening in the beginning. It's just the film starts out with that, and it just sets the tone perfectly that this car is evil and you're gonna enjoy watching it do the things that it's gonna do. And actually George Thorogood had a cameo in the film. He was one of the garbage guys at the very end of the film when they're crushing it up. But for some reason his scenes were deleted. So kind of a loss there, but still pretty cool. The soundtrack itself is just an amazing selection of classic 50s rock. One of the best tracks on here, and I've talked about this, is the Harlem Nocturne track. This is played in probably the coolest scene in the movie, where after Christine has been all destroyed, the owner, who kind of knows that Christine has a power to her, he goes, okay, show me, and the car begins to reform itself. It's a fantastic scene, and it's almost like it's a striptease in a way, and that's the way the actor played it. He said, I'm imagining that Christine is a girl and that she's doing this striptease for me. And it works so well to see. Basically what they did was they destroyed the car and then shot the footage and then rolled the footage in reverse. It's an incredible sequence that you can check out. It's so cool. At first when I heard the song, I thought it was Carpenter because it has that throbbing beat to it at the beginning, but it's the Viscounts, and they do such a good job with that. I'm gonna look into them and see if I can't find more of their stuff because that track was great. It was really cool. The Christine soundtrack is a must for any horror film or 50s rock fan who also happens to collect vinyl. It's a really fun piece to have in my collection. It just rocks. I don't know other way to say it. When I play this thing, I have to crank it up loud. I am a huge fan of the film Christine, so much so that my red guitar here, my red friend, is actually, I have dubbed Christine. I really want to get green lights for the inner body, so when I play her, she lights up, but still, pretty cool here. I want to thank you guys for checking out this video and checking out all my videos as well. It's really cool to be doing this. I love talking vinyl. I love being able to talk about soundtracks and movies and things like that. This is really cool. And thank you guys for supporting me and all that jazz. I will see you guys next time.